Okay, welcome to the meeting of the Westborough Affordable Housing Trust on Thursday, May 13th, 2021. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, GL Chapter 30A, Section 18, and the Governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitation on the number of people that may gather in one place. This meeting of the Westborough Affordable Housing Trust will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and or parties with the right and or requirements to attend this meeting can be found on the Town of Westborough's website at town.westborough.ma.us. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to watch the meeting may do so in the following manner. Westborough TV's online platforms, youtube.com/Westborough TV and westboroughTV.org, or on Charter Channel 192 or Verizon Channel 28. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post on the Town of Westborough's website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. Okay. Again, good morning, everyone. And hi, Mark. I don't know. I know you know Hank. Do you know Kate? Kate's on. Kate Storm.
Kate. Hi, Kate.
Hi, Kate. Kate.
Good to meet you.
Mark is chair of the planning board here in Westborough. So
yeah, I've seen you. I know of you. So it's good to see you and meet you.
Only good things, right?
Yeah, only good things, I'm sure. And Alan, if you might notice, I am wearing a suit coat because I got some comments at the last selectmen's meeting that you chaired. Anyhow. I am calling to order. We have approval of minutes from April 8th, our meeting of April 8th. And I had one minor change, then we'll go around if anybody else. It's on, I'll let you, Alan, if you want to get up the minutes. The secretary.
Yep. Give me just 1 second here.
Yeah, it's very minor.
Hold on. Okay.
Yeah, it's on page 3. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, seventh bullet point down, where it starts, Mr. Rauch provided an update.
Yep.
Okay, if you read down the last sentence, it says it is unknown of the community. I think that should be if the community.
Good catch.
Okay, and then the other, it's minor. The next bullet point down, Mr. Rauch mentioned that another town-owned property at 1 Upton Road and another on Baylor Avenue off Lyman. I think that should be changed to mention another town-owned property at 1 Upton Road that, for possible development. And
since there are 2, I'll make it.
And a property, the Baylor Avenue one is a possibly tax-taking situation.
Right. So,
and
property up the road and
a possible opportunity, I would just say, on Baylor Avenue, off Lyman, so as not to make it too public, the issue there.
I'm just going to say a tax property.
Okay, that's fine.
Baylor Avenue off Lyman. Possibilities. Explore. Okay.
Okay. Anyone else have corrections or amendments to the minutes? I see people shaking their heads no. I have a motion to accept the minutes.
I move
So
we
moved.
accept the minutes.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Kate. You.
I don't know what the official language is here, but I
I move to accept the minutes.
move to accept the minutes. Thank you.
As presented and amended.
As presented and amended. Yes.
Second?
Second, yeah.
Okay. Roll call. Alan?
Okay, Kate,
Yes. Storm, yes.
Hank,
Roush, yes.
Ed,
Bain, yes.
and Edinburgh, yes. So it passes by a vote of 4-0-0 being present.
Right. Okay, next on the agenda is a Sarah update. That's the Community Rental Assistance Program that Alan and Kate, you have been working on. So Alan did send out a brief update, but it was still a bit of a work in progress on April 22nd. Can you bring us up to date with some more numbers and comments of how that program's going?
Okay, sure. So first off, by the numbers, we have the program's received 13 applications. 5 of them are complete. And so of those 5, we've got a studio, 2 3-bedrooms, and 1 3-bedroom unit. If you look at those 5 by household size, 1 2-person family, 1 3-person family. Hold on one second. And yeah, 2 3-person families and 2 5-person families. There are so we have those 5 complete applications. There are 8 applications that are incomplete. 2 households are expected to have the last pieces of documentation today or tomorrow, and they would still qualify for May 1 rental assistance. The team at MWCD is following up with the other people who have applications that are incomplete about getting them complete within the next few days. They're doing phone and email follow-ups. And then there are they're close to 50 applications that have been requested. So there's still more than 30, 35 households that have the link and the password but have not yet submitted their application. So, early on, there was a little bit of an issue of getting the translation services up and running and in line. It was more of a procedural thing with the translation service that MWCD uses. That was quickly resolved once it was brought to our attention. The other issue has been that there are some people who are applying who don't have email addresses. And so MWCD is happy to have them send information by text, if possible, and is also reminding them that they can go to Town Hall. There are envelopes on the counter in the town manager's office that they can put their materials in, leave it. When that happens, Karen or Sheila will give me a call, and I'll run over and we'll overnight it. Or just, if I have time, I'll just drive it into, into MWCD's offices. It's not that far away. And so that's happening now. So one of the things we're doing over the next couple of days is Markeisha is going to be speaking with anyone who she knows has referred a household by household and ask them to follow up to make sure that they're getting emails, that they're still interested in the process, get a sense of who still needs assistance and what assistance they might need in getting the application filled out. We're also advising folks to submit the application even if they don't have the documentation ready, because then we can help with the documentation. And there have been some issues that have come up. We have some applicants who are paid in cash, and their employers don't even want to provide a letter that says they work there. And so the program, in talking things through with Youth and Family Services and with MWCD, is if an applicant can get, a couple of coworkers to sign a letter that says, I work with so-and-so at this job, they work so many hours a week, that's acceptable for the program. We just need some form of indication of who the employer is and where someone works and that it's been affected. And so we're willing to, accept, information from coworkers as well as the employer directly. And by the way, some of these employers, this isn't just like household help type situations. Some of these employers are national brands with big signs along Route 9 that are still hiring people under the table. So we don't want to get into that mess, and we don't want to cause problems for the employer or for the applicants. So we've provided those mechanisms, and we've been communicating that out. At this point, I think we're ready for another social media push and another reconnection with all the volunteers who've been referring. I believe the Chapel of the Cross on Flanders Road. They're doing food box giveaways and distribution every Wednesdays now, on Wednesdays. And so we've reached out to them about asking people if they live in Westborough, and if so, handing those folks a packet of information about rental assistance as well. The food pantry's been distributing information to the clients and offering assistance, as has Youth and Family Services and the public schools. We reached out to the Interfaith Clergy Association, which forwarded our information to every house of worship within Westborough, and the borough's branch of the YMCA has been letting. They have a social worker there that assists, and that social worker has been speaking to Westborough families as well. And then someone just told me yesterday that, maybe we should, just go tape up a flyer on the mailboxes at the trailer park, right? And things of that nature. So we might do some of that. There is some other activity happening in the world of emergency rental assistance and assistance for people related to COVID-19. Let me pull up a little chart. You may have heard or may not have, because it hasn't really been well publicized, that the DHCD, with an influx of about $400 million specifically for emergency rental assistance, launched, rather than just putting it through the existing RAFT and IRMA programs, created a new program called ERAP, or Emergency Rental Assistance Program, for lack of a better name. This program is good for families up to 80% AMI, which is nice because the RAFT program, which is the most accessible state program at this point, is only 60% AMI. This provides up to 15 months of rent and up to $1,500 for past due utilities. And so you can pay up to 12 months of back rent. And I believe that can be up to 100% of rent, not, the 50% FMR that our program in RAF does, and as well as, prospectively your next 3 months rent as well. And tenants can apply. Landlords with tenant consent can apply on behalf of their tenants as well. So if the landlord can document that the rent hasn't been paid, they can do the paperwork. And they just need the tenants to sign a form saying, yes, the information the landlord is providing you is correct, and puts the burden on the landlord. So this chart, I'll finish making it fancy. I'll put it on our website. It's sort of, puts our program in perspective. Mm-hmm. The big difference between our program and the other programs is that once the documentation is in, the decision process is a day or two, right? It's really just about collecting the documentation, and then you're approved. Right now, RAFT, it says up to 60 days. Most people, it's taking 45 to 60 days to get approval. And so our program can still provide that rental assistance while you're waiting for RAFT approval.
Would that be the same with the ERAP?
ERAP just launched.
Right.
And I can't find out if they're actually dispersing money at all right now. It was announced that it was announced late April, and there was finally a landing page on the website last week. So I think DHCD is scrambling to get the program up and running. So I've reached out to someone at the program and haven't, 3 days ago and haven't heard back.
Right.
So,
It's a state managed program, correct?
yeah, it's managed by Department of Housing and Community Development, DHCD.
Okay. Because what would appear to me at least is that if somebody needs help really immediately, they can come to us, and then maybe either, and we have in provisions that they have to go to RAFT or IRMA, or they have to put in,
Right.
applications to them, and probably ERAP should come under that as well. One of those three programs they should be working on. And really what we may do is fill in a gap until they get on one of those programs, because the ERAP is actually a more generous.
ERAP is the most generous, and so I'll be reaching out to all of our stakeholders assisting us with the program and let them know that we want people to apply for ERAP. I think the state, because the $400 million in the ERAP fund is use it or lose it by September 30th.
Mm-hmm.
So those funds have to be committed. And so I expect the state would like to get as much emergency rental assistance related to COVID through the ERAP program, so that RAFT can go back to being what it's intended for, which is helping households that are homeless get into a place to live, and sort of get the ERAP and the IRMA programs back to normal, and use this influx of federal dollars and the ERAP program to help with the emergency needs, and get those back rent paid.
Alan, I have a question.
Sure.
So I have two question and comment. One is going back to the issues of income verification, where there's employers who are not willing to certify that this person has worked for them. Whose decision is it to require this documentation? Is it ours? Is it MWCD? Is it a state regulation that we need to have? I'm just wondering I understand trying to help people get the certification by asking coworkers to sign off on it is we're being flexible with this. At the same time, I feel like that's just asking a lot of our families to go and ask their coworkers, and the dignity there. I'm like, why can't we just ask for a self-certification that this person certifies that they have worked at this place and they've lost income?
I'll talk to Jennifer and Lakeisha about that at MWCD. The issue is that we need some form of verification of need, so that the rental assistance we're providing is considered assistance and not a gift.
Okay.
Because if it's seen as a gift, then it counts as income. And so for, not for all, but for some of our applicants, if they're if they get 4 months of assistance in a 3-bedroom, that $3,600 of income could very well disqualify them from other types of affordable housing assistance.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, I definitely don't want to impact people's abilities to get further assistance. I also just wanted to know, what are the other options here for getting that income verification? Because I just feel like, asking for coworkers to sign off on the fact that you don't have income so that you can get housing assistance is just I
hear you. I mean, I'm happy to talk to MWCD about that.
Okay. My other question was, go ahead, Ed.
No, you go. Keep going.
Good.
My other question was the landlord piece, and this is something that I've been wondering about for a while now, but just haven't voiced until now, is what about if we're looking to continue to advocate for our program, what about going to landlords in town and just saying, like, do you have tenants who are struggling with their rent? Because we, especially if these are landlords that like want to keep these families in their apartments or whatever, because they typically have been, great tenants. They want to keep them there. We want to support them in keeping them in their housing. And so can we advocate for this program on the landlord side rather than always heading to potential families? I'm just wondering, like, what that would look like and what does that mean?
Yeah, I mean, we can certainly do outreach to landlords to let them know the program exists.
Is there
Right now, go ahead, Ed.
Yeah, is there a good way to get a list of who are landlords and, of size, I'm saying, types of housing units, apartment buildings?
I think that becomes challenging. But I don't know.
At the very least, we can get information on the website, get information in social media. The
only other way would be
the assessor's office might have
right.
that information.
The assessor's office would have the ownership of the, I believe, through the assessor's office has, actually sending out, when we send out to landlords the tax bills, we have that data. Now, how much of that is private, public, I don't know. That would be something that...
Ed, it's not clear to me that the assessor's office will be aware of small rental units. They'll know a unit is multifamily, but they don't know that it's rented out outside the family.
Correct. And we may have to make some judgment on, if there's a size, but.
Yeah, I think the outreach we're doing is going to get to landlords, right? Particularly small landlords. If the landlord goes to church, he or she's going to hear about it, just in the same way the tenants do. And the big landlords, like the folks with, with a couple of hundred units, they know about it, and they're going to do whatever they're going to do.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I think it's a fair point, Hank, that, there's a lot of outreach that's happened already. Thanks to Alan. And so I think that I'm not sure how much more can really be done. Although I don't like that defeatist attitude either.
Yeah, no, Kate, I think we ought to communicate to the folks who are helping us with the outreach. Please don't forget about outreaching to the landlords, but allow them to use their connections, because they're the folks who have knowledge of how to broadcast messages.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I don't have a lot of knowledge of how to broadcast messages.
Yeah. Board of Health doesn't have to approve rentals, correct?
I don't believe so.
So they wouldn't have a list.
Okay. I don't believe they do any inspections. I don't think the building department does any inspections.
Yeah, in theory, the assessor's office is supposed to know if you're renting out, because that could affect how they assess the value of the property.
Mm.
Right? Because rental properties are assessed on different formulas than, owner occupied. Mark's a subject matter expert on assessment, so he can chime in if I'm incorrect on that, is our guest. Okay. So I'll look into all of this.
Any other questions for Alan and or Kate on the status of the program? It looks like it's moving along. That's good. We do have people that showing interest, some more in the queue, and things are working well as we can expect, I think, at this point. So, all right, why don't we move on then? Hank, can you give us some updates on some of the activities you've been up to, that you and Leah have been up to?
I mean, we haven't, we're waiting for the housing authority to come back to us and you know, identify what they'd like to do as the next step. And I don't have much to say. I mean, we've got a variety of properties out there. The property that's in tax title, and when it clears, we'll be able to go and take action. I mean, when the town acquires the property, we can then go have a conversation with the Board of Selectmen. But until the land court settlement happens and the property comes under the control of the selectmen, there's not much we can do.
Okay. On the Rogers Road property, I think you said you could do up to 26 units. If,
we're not sure how many units we could do. I mean, you're gonna have to at some point in time when the housing authority comes up with an understanding of what audience, you know, what families we would like to serve. Do we want to serve the over 55 community? Do we want to do family housing? What do they see as being the need? We can then take a look at the entire piece of property and see what is possible to build there.
right.
Because the Rogers Road property actually includes the property that the senior center's on.
Correct.
The senior center does not really control the use of that property. The Board of Selectmen control the use of that property.
Right.
So, but there's also a large chunk of wetlands up there.
Right.
So you kind of got to come up with a vision for what you'd like to do, and then go get some engineering help to understand what it takes to do it. Then you can have an informed conversation with the Board of Selectmen and see if there's support from the community to do something.
Okay. There were some issues of the sewer hookups and things like that. I mean, that's on any large development.
Right. I mean, there is a moratorium on multifamily sewer hookups. We're probably looking at the summer of 2022 before that situation changes. And at this point, until the DPW is able to complete their studies and go work with the state to get approval on changing the flow allocations, you really can't predict what the outcome will be. We should, I mean, Westborough should be successful in getting the sewer capacity reallocated, but it's going to take a good bit of work. And the first piece is to finish the engineering study.
Right.
To that end, that property might already have an allocation from when the housing authority originally purchased it. The DPW would have to check their records on that.
Yeah, I mean, they may not be using all of their allocation. We could double check, you know, right, at some point.
And I know in the past the housing authority has talked about, you know, the need for more 62 plus housing.
Yep.
And so I hope that, you know, rather than saying more like what they have with the building at Rogers Road, maybe think about how do we maximize, you know, capacity, you know, maybe a 3 or 4 story elevator building, knowing that ideally they'd like to have an elevator in it to Rogers Road, even though it's only 2 stories. And, you know, and sort of think about, you know, how many and what type, and also, as you talk to them, ask them, you know, what type of service space do they think they need for that community? Do they want, you know, larger common rooms, laundry facilities, you know,
yep.
Other communities that are building 62 plus housing units are putting in space that could be used by visiting medical practitioners or counselors,
yep.
You know, or physical therapists, so that, you know, do we want some service capability there as well? As you, on a related subject, as you talk to the housing authority, can you also reiterate that we would like, I'll sort of put this out there, that it would be helpful if they could get some general cost estimate for putting sprinklers in at 2 Rogers Road and the cost of an elevator. Because I've been approached by members of our legislative delegation again asking if we're ready for them to earmark funds for that in an upcoming budget. And so,
Alan, do you know if the fire chief has recommended that we sprinkler that building?
the fire chief wants that building to have sprinklers.
Okay.
The fire chief believes that if there were an incident in that building, it would be mass casualty without sprinklers.
Right. Okay.
Do you know when they plan to meet, when their next meeting is? I know that was in the minutes from last time.
They meet monthly, but off the top of my head, I'm not sure when in the month. I'll check in with the executive director and maybe even get on their agenda if possible.
All right.
That might be. Go ahead, Alan.
I'm aware that at some point in the past they had an attorney say not to accept earmarks. But I think that advice is decades old. Marlborough just took an earmark to renovate, gut level renovation of units in Marlborough. Acton got earmarks to help subsidize the expansion, the upgrade of some existing affordable housing and expansion. So, if that's something we can do to help improve the quality of life and the safety in the existing, it might not involve any money from the trust or ever become a trust program, but if we can help advocate for that, it would be a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, if we can do advocacy, and I know some other housing trusts have worked with housing authorities to help with pre-permitting, engineering, and expenses of that sort. I mean, there's quite a bit of expense involved just getting to the point where you've got a proposal that you can go get funding for.
Right, and the question is, does the housing authority want to do that work for their property that's available, or do they want to lease the property to us to do that work?
Yeah, I mean, well, the town already owns the property, Alan. I mean, the housing authority, I don't believe the housing authority actually owns the land.
I believe the housing authority does.
Okay.
But I'll double check that.
Yeah, they didn't seem to have clarity as to what land they own and what land they don't own.
Yeah, so I could
we should
probably
get
help you
that,
guys with that. Oh, sorry, I could
Go ahead,
probably answer some of that. The housing authority owns part of it. If I don't know if I can share. If you look at the GIS, it's pretty clear what they own and what they don't own.
Okay.
And I can present that to you guys if you want. Let me just.
We can pull the GIS. It's easy to pull.
Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, I probably later on would want to share the GIS anyway, so I can just show you that at some point. But yeah, there is space next to, between the existing buildings and the senior center that is owned by the housing authority and not by the town. Now it's zoned residential. So to do anything like Alan proposes, or you'd probably have to either get a variance through a friendly 40B, maybe.
Yeah, I'm pulling up the GIS so we can see.
Sure. So, yeah, so if you can see that space at the bottom is probably where they would put the building.
Right. And so just for reference, the senior center is down here at the bottom of the screen.
Senior center is on a separate lot.
That's 4 Rogers Road.
Yeah,
it's
if you
2
click
Rogers
on that,
Road
that's
property.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's taking a while. So I just brought up the color. So this is zoned
residential. Yeah.
RG, I believe.
No, just R. I'm not sure what RG is.
Okay, so here's a better where you can see the so you have about a third of that property is still available.
Now, if you notice, Hastings School is right, elementary is right there. So if we needed to use some of that rear lot in some way, it probably could be well worked out with the school department. Again, I don't think if you're doing a 40B there, you probably don't need to worry about open space restrictions or anything like that. You just get the variance.
Yeah, and
So,
then
yeah,
and then the other question is the existing. If it's zoned residential, there's already a variance for the multi-unit housing that's there. Does that
Right.
apply to the full property? In which case, the variance already exists.
yeah, that's a question for the ZBA. I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah.
But I think probably they'd have to give a new variance for that. The other thing, just as a aside, if you're looking at the property in between Hastings and Rogers Road, which is that little 107 maybe,
Yep.
that's a pretty nice lot with a very modest building on it.
Yeah, there's a small single-family home on that lot. It had previously been offered to the town around the time when we were doing work on Hastings over there. We chose not to buy it, but I'm sure if we got interested, we could interest the owner in selling it to us.
So this is one of my frustrations and I'm not on that land acquisition committee, but you look at that lot sold in 2012 for 200,000. Had the town had the foresight then to buy it for that, now it obviously would cost a lot more. And Hastings, the school department went to the other side and bought that 2-family for 450. Right. So it's we missed an opportunity to pay 200 and spent double that for essentially the same utility.
Yep.
So I could point to a number of opportunities like that have gone by the wayside, but we're not here to talk.
We can't live in the past, Mark.
That. Oh, I can. I should have bought real estate in '94. Damn it. So,
okay. So, Hank, it seems like the best we can do is try to encourage them to move along. We'll get as much information as we can as far as ownership, although Mark, gave us a good overview. And
can I just say one more thing, Ed?
Absolutely.
I'm sorry. I meant to bring this up. But if you're talking to the housing authority, and I don't know if you guys are familiar with their other parcel on East Main Street, it's another fairly rundown single family. It's where they built that new office building.
You're referring to 83?
Yeah. That might be another opportunity to work with the housing authority to do something with more units. I don't know if they would be interested.
So 83 East Main Street is the property's owned by the housing authority, I believe, but the building and the program is a state program.
Oh, it is. Okay.
And the housing authority helps manage the facility. So it counts as units.
I can double check that, but the housing authority does have contracts with the state to manage properties for the state. They manage properties that they don't own. I know that, and I'll check on the 83 property.
Yeah, so the housing authority is listed as the owner there, and I would suggest that right next to that at 81 is another very modest single family that might be an opportunity to, that sold for 270 in 2009. That might be an opportunity to combine those and do something more substantial in partnership with the housing authority. But again, that's a long-term prospect. I think Well, Mark, most of the stuff we're talking about is a 2 to 3 year horizon. Right.
But, I mean, it can take as much as 5 years to go through these various processes. So,
sure.
2 to 3 is a reasonable kind of a expectation when you start. I mean, if you're not willing to work at it for 2 or 3 years, don't start.
Yeah, and I don't mean to go through every parcel in town with you guys. That's not really my function. I just wanted to talk to you guys about the opportunities from a zoning standpoint.
No, that's very helpful. Actually, no, we encourage that. We want to, obviously the town has a lot of opportunities, possible opportunities. So the more we're aware of them, the more we can dig in, peel back the onion a bit, if you will, to understand the aspects of doing any kind of development.
Yeah, and I could I could spend all day doing this if you wanted, but especially with Hank on the phone, because Hank has so much background on this that I don't even know about. So,
well, one of the things we want to do, and just while we're talking about it, is, and I messed up a little bit on this, Mark, and I apologize. I had met with, and we're going to talk about it in a minute, with both Mark and Jim on, I think it was the 3rd of the month. And they're going to both join us, and I'll set aside sufficient time on the agenda for them to talk about both housing choice, but also, their views on where there are opportunities and maybe some of their, I'll use the word philosophy that covers a broad range of areas on developing, housing, particularly higher density housing, that has a considerable affordable component to it. So you're going to get center stage next month, and I apologize that
no,
I got
it's
confused.
okay.
And did that. So yeah, and Jim can make that meeting. He did confirm.
Right.
Through that email. So
yeah, and I think we should also talk a little bit about the new changes to 40A and the requirements for greater density.
Right, the housing choice initiative and things like that. Yeah. So I don't know if there's anything else you have, Hank, or we'll move to the next point.
Not particularly. Thank you.
Okay. Actually, we almost transitioned into it. As I said, we met for about 45 minutes, I think, in Jim's office. I found it very, very helpful with both Mark and Jim there. We are, with this housing choice initiative, which is in its, I guess, second year now, that has a variety of components, legal components, as far as housing density, right to develop, et cetera, as well as some grant money for what they call choice communities or approved communities. I forget the exact term. In some cases, towns have to apply to be considered eligible for the grant money. When the legislation was written, because we had an MBTA station in town, we were automatically, I'll use the word grandfathered in or included in, along with, a couple of dozen other, obviously, communities as part of that program. So we're already authorized as a, to apply for grants. Now, there's nothing we can do this year. 22 or 21 is already spoken for, but for 22, we could apply for grants if we had projects that would meet it. And some of the projects are significant, like major conversions of different kinds of buildings into housing units. The whole point of the housing choice was to encourage higher density developments, and particularly developments that were close to transportation hubs, not just MBTA, but other areas as well. So, we had a good meeting. I learned that as we discussed. Jim and Mark are going to come to the June meeting. We did talk about a variety of locations that Mark and Jim had, just through in their travels, have sort of identified or said, hey, these might be opportunities. So I think coming up with that list or the your top 10 or top 5 list of possible locations where it would be, I'll use the word, not easy, but manageable to develop, where the hill would be a little lower to climb. You want to add anything from that meeting, Mark?
Yeah, I mean, I'm ready to talk about it now, but I also recognize the value of having Jim here from a technical standpoint. The the new, well, I want to talk about the existing zoning, right? We currently have an overlay downtown that would allow for mixed use residential. Almost every residential zoning in town has a 20% affordable minimum required. In fact, I would say every single one now, except like an A&R lot. But regardless, we have discretion to bring that down to 10%. Typically, we would only do that for an owner-occupied project, and that has a lot to do with DHCD rate, standards for inclusion on the SHI, which is the housing. Anyway, so rental projects, if 20% meet DHCD guidelines, then we get credit on the SHI for all of the units, right? Mm-hmm. On an owner-occupied project, we only get credit for the units that are actually affordable. So the incentive to go to 20% on that is a little bit less. And I'm not personally a fan of the DHCD guidelines because I think, particularly in Worcester County, they're very hard to meet. Alan's talked a lot about gap housing. I think that's something that we need to try and target in any project. And one of the other committees I sit on is Community Preservation Act Exploratory Committee, and that gives some room for gap housing because you're allowed to go to 100% of median income as opposed to 80%, which I think is right. your restriction. So we can talk again about CPA further down the road because that committee will be probably coming in to present to you. But
actually, one of our members, Leah McLean, sure. keeps us up to date on that. Good. She's on CPA.
Yeah, well, we're actually meeting with the Board of Selectmen on the 25th to ask them for permission to do a formal presentation to all the boards and committees in town just to get feedback, and we'll move that forward with a really formal presentation to this committee, I think. So, yep. But anyway, the point is that'll be another source of funding for your trust if it passes. And really what I wanted to focus on was kind of the opportunities that we have downtown already from a zoning standpoint. The overlay is very generous as far as 4-story buildings, no parking, no minimum parking, no minimum side yards. Really what we're envisioning is, if you look at the streetscape on West Main Street, and I can pull up pictures, but the across from Town Hall, the 4-story brick set right on the sidewalk with the parking in the back, that's what we'd like to see. And I think the target would be
that's 25 East Main. Yeah. The 25 East Main.
Right. That's a good example of something that was recently built.
Right.
But even just like the arcade building is a 4-story brick. We'd like to encourage that type of architecture down, in the Rotary, or near the Rotary. And I think the best, we could target a number of lots, but in an ideal world, maybe from the Rotary to the railroad bridge, right? If we could really focus on that, there's a number of opportunities there. The town owns the Forbes building where the food pantry is.
Right.
Maybe we could work with, we've already worked with the Alexanders on the Sugar Shack, right? Maybe we could work with them to kind of take the Sugar Shack building, the Forbes building, and that little garage that's behind it.
Yeah.
That's also owned by Alexander's, right? You could combine all of that and put a pretty substantial building there. That would be similar to the condos at Bay State, but
yes,
have a substantial affordable housing, maybe senior component, and but also mixed use. And leave the food pantry in there, leave the sugar shack in there. And
There's also the parking lot that runs along Union Street. It's sort of along Union to the, I guess would be the west of the community center that they use. You know, I don't know who owns that, but I know it's used by the few. Herb does.
Yeah, he owned it. I could pull it up again, but if you look at that
That's
lot
right.
on the GIS, it's a very weird shape.
Okay.
You know, the main building is the Alexander. You know, I think Marlboro Savings Bank is in there.
Not anymore.
And then
No.
oh yeah, no, that's right. It's not anymore. Okay.
Yeah.
There's an environmental company, and the rest of the building's vacant.
Right. So that lot actually curls around to that parking lot that you're talking about and includes the garage that isn't back in there. So it's a very weird shape, but it could, you know, has potential to be combined with or serve it. You know, you could use that parking for another building. If we, again, I'm not going to get too ahead of myself on, you know, partnership, but that's an opportunity where we, you know, we could see something. The problem with a lot of those lots is they've been chopped up and they're small. So to get, I mean, you could look at the little Korean restaurant. They own the little ranch behind it, but then you'd have to work with Commerce, right? And, you know, how do you get them all together to do a new building? You know, the Commerce parking lot abuts that. Yeah. You know where Holly Kenny's store is, and you know, like that's a building that is certainly, I would say, eligible for redevelopment.
Yeah.
You know,
the old Dacey's Diner.
Yeah. Or you could say the same. One of my favorite lots is the place with the dog, the kennel, not the kennel, the dog place, all about the pup, right? Like I love them. I take my dog there, but that building is a dog. So, you know, with the cell phone towers, but it's a beautiful lot. It's a nice shape. It's got frontage.
Okay.
Your land, Mark, your reputation as a property nerd is showing.
Yeah. So again, I mean, I think we need to target bigger lots, like the two gas stations, Mobil and Shell might be hard, but if we could get those replaced by a nice building, that, you know, that would be fantastic.
All right. Well, why don't we hold? I mean, I don't want to get into this too much. But you've given us a taste of, which is good, of what we want to talk about. You know, some options, and anything you could do with Jim to maybe prepare a list of discussion points. And we can discuss, you know, how much time. We don't have a lot of other things going. You know, we'll get a Sarah update. Hank will probably give us an update on things. But we can actually do, you know, probably half an hour to 40 minutes focused on some of these.
I do have some information I'm wondering if Mark and Jim could put together.
Sure.
And that is my understanding of the legislation has to do with density where the property touches within a half mile of an MBTA facility.
Right.
And so, of course, I went to our great GIS system, right, which lets you draw measured lines. I sort of looked at, okay, what properties? And, you know, I look at that half mile circle around the corners of the MBTA property on Smith Valve Parkway, and half of that circle is south of the railroad tracks and it's single family today. The other half that's north of it is commercial industrial, where we have an overlay district. And the new legislation says that you have to have 15 dwellings per acre modified for any wetlands by right. Whereas within that half mile circle, there is not much, there's no undeveloped property.
Right.
The majority of it is developed and occupied commercial industrial, and the residential pieces that touch it are already developed as multifamily, but at 14 units per acre.
Right, and that's one of the things we did talk about.
I guess my question is, like, you know, if we go in and we change the zoning for that district, are we putting commercial property at risk of being converted to residential, which goes to the whole balance of commercial residential towards tax base, or is it going to be a by right overlay that'll never get used because the property's developed?
So the way the law is written, and again, they're still formulating advisory opinions and answering a lot of questions, but they're encouraging every town to create a multifamily zone with 15 units per acre within half a mile. Doesn't mean that every property within half a mile has to be zoned for that.
Right.
So, one of our thoughts was taking the existing overlay, the transit overlay, and just revising it to meet that criteria. Now, is that going to encourage redevelopment of existing industrial commercial lots? Well, I mean, I think Amazon would be in the overlay, but they're not gonna necessarily build residential, right? They've they've already built this robotics building. They're not going to add residential. So, whether we would actually have anything built because of that is probably unlikely, unless we included something like the Ward property that's vacant or substantially vacant, or even the Bavarian property that just sold. But what the new law does say, and we need to go to DHCD for an advisory opinion, is a town can apply to them and say, well, we would like to do this zone somewhere else, and here's why. I think it makes way more sense for us to do a zone like that closer to downtown, and we can justify the affordability of that through the rideshare program that's already in place. Right.
Jim was mentioning that if we showed that we could provide easy transportation between, let's say, more of a downtown, area, and then, people shoot over via some of the ride share and other MRTA facilities, that might meet their criteria or their goals of providing access to mass transit, which is really the ultimate goal. You're trying to encourage use of mass transit.
Yeah, and also if we can, in the long run, develop some type of, extension to the B-Walt or something so that you could ride your bike from downtown to the train station. That might be another way to prove affordability, right? So again, it's as a long-term kind of concept. I think we'd rather see greater density downtown than, allowing more density over by the train station, which is, really not many it's a little bit more isolated and not many opportunities for more residential or more development in general, and also really where we want more industrial development. And I am honestly not a huge fan of the existing overlay. I don't think it's worked out the way we had envisioned. We haven't had any commercial buildings built. The Toll Brothers project was supposed to have a commercial component. They just never built it, and they don't seem to be interested in building it. And, we've smartened up on that to require a developer to build a commercial building. But, there doesn't seem to be a lot of demand for commercial buildings in that location. So,
Okay, just to keep us on schedule here, we're moving on 10 o'clock. So Mark, once again, if you and Jim can try to come with I don't want to say a formal presentation, but things that are maybe something that can be a handout or something to present that can talk to some of the key issues that you see and opportunities. That would be great for our June meeting.
Yeah, and I'll try and put something together to email you before the meeting so that you can distribute it to the committee, and then we can do just a quick summary of that and Q&A kind of thing. So
That would be perfect.
I'm going to jump off now because I have to get to an appointment. I just wanted to thank you guys for what you're doing because I'm really excited about it. And if I had more time, I would fill that open seat, but I just don't know if I could.
You're on the recruiting list.
Yeah.
No, if you know of people, by the way,
Yeah.
that might be appropriate for our committee. Obviously, you understand our mission, and you probably know people that have a background that could be helpful. Please send us an email. Send me an email.
I will look around because I think it'd be awesome. I wish I could do it. So.
You can do it anonymously, so in case you don't want to be known to throw somebody under the bus. So,
well, I think I'd really like to stay abreast of what
Sure.
your efforts are doing, so that I can at least advise or give my 2 cents as needed.
Sure, absolutely.
All right.
No, I'm saying if you recommend somebody, you can do it anonymously, so they can't come back at you.
Yeah, right. I will. I'll probably talk to somebody first.
No,
I like your thinking. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Take care, everybody.
Great.
Nice to talk.
Thanks, Mark.
Okay. Bye.
Okay. I don't think we need a CPA update since Leah isn't on, and it sounds like.
I can just give one quick thing. The CPA Exploratory Committee is coming before the Board of Selectmen at our next meeting on the 25th to provide an update of where they are and possibly a straw man recommendation for how they want to proceed. It's a checkpoint, and they're going to ask the board to say, are we on the right track? Should we proceed? And the proceeding would then be, they would do the tour of the boards and committees, right? The
road show.
The rock and roll road show. And I expect we would be, even though Leah's on our committee, that they would request an agenda time at some point, for an upcoming meeting and get input. I'm not sure if they've decided whether they expect to bring this forward to town meeting in October or next spring, how they see the timing working. So that's a question we can ask that we should get a better sense of on the 25th at the Board of Selectmen's meeting.
Okay. Thank you. The update next item was just the website and file storage. I finally got on and started to play around a little bit. Alan, I know you've uploaded some things. So we're in decent shape as far as the core things we want up there, minutes, agendas, et cetera. Please feel free to use me to do some work. I know you're pretty busy, but I feel comfortable now creating content, et cetera. And by the way, your screen is frozen, but although it's a very, very nice photo that there we go. Image
I'm having trouble with the camera I'm using because my other camera for webcasts I do for work, I'm setting up a teleprompter system.
Oh, so, my goodness.
going high tech here. So, but this camera tends to freeze. So as far as the web update, I do actually want to share my screen for a minute and just make sure that everyone, if you haven't had a chance to log in, that you do so. If you need help, I'll get on a live session and walk you through it.
That's what I was going to ask because I really need help. So
I can help you.
Okay, thank you.
After the meeting, just let me know. Some times are good for you, and we can, go live. Let me just share that window really quickly. Okay. So this is the SharePoint site for us as Board of Trustees. I'll go back in. I'll make this meeting section. It's got quick links and news feed, etc. I'll get that a little smaller, but down here we've got I've created 2 initial file cabinets. One is trust documents. So there's a finance folder where Ed can keep all the documentation we have as far as money's coming in, money's going out.
Yep.
In our meetings folder, if I open that, you'll see that I just have a folder for each meeting down here. I can make it bigger. And then scroll down a bit. Is that a little easier to see? Mm-hmm. Okay, and so, I put the agenda, the minutes, the draft minutes, the approved minutes, any documents that we've shared or discussed in the meeting. Those are there, as well as a reference library. Our annual reports or any report we present to the Board of Selectmen would go in here, and then copies of the declaration, the declaration of trust and the bylaws and everything. We've got a storage place for that. And so, it's an easy site. If you're in these documents often, Ed, this probably applies to you. Let me go back up to trust documents. If you see here, there's something called sync.
Yep.
If you're on a PC and you click sync and you've got OneDrive installed on your desktop, it'll create a network link, right? So if I pull up.
You mean on my office desktop, or you mean?
Yeah, just on, so as part of, so like here, you'll see, let me adjust my screen a little bit. You can see that I now have a network drive called Town of Westborough, and I've got one called Documents, and the same folders are here. So when you're working in Microsoft Excel or Microsoft Word, what's in the SharePoint site will look and feel like it's just on your computer. It'll automatically sync. So that, I can go in here and I can say, like, here's everything for last month's meeting, the agenda approved, et cetera.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is, we have a combination. Some of this is replicated, particularly things like agendas and minutes on the website as well.
This is meant to be our working area and our permanent storage for everything.
Right.
What's on the website, and I can.
And that's more the customer facing or the town facing version site.
Yeah, and so we do have the. Let me bring over.
Yeah, I've used SharePoint before. It's been a while, but I feel comfortable with that.
So this is our public-facing website. All of our agendas are up. All of our meetings are up. I'll get our meetings, our minutes from April 8th. Now that they've been approved, will be uploaded. And I'll put a placeholder with a link to this video for today's meeting as well. And then, we've got quick links to the action plan that was done by when we were the working group, as well as our declaration of trust and the warrant article and bylaw as it was passed. So people can actually see everything, as well as some other reference information that people might find, news and announcements, our calendar. So we're moving forward with this public-facing site. We can start to it's effectively current right now, so we can start to let people know it exists if they want to learn more about who we are and what we do.
Right.
And for some reason, in our list of trustees, when I refresh the screen, sometimes everyone shows up and sometimes they don't.
I cannot see Leah's name on the website. I mean, I see the blank, the area. If I go into the website, I've gone through the contacts, and everything I see looks fine. But
she disappears sometimes, and sometimes Hank disappears. Nothing personal, Hank. So we might need to let Civic Plus know.
Yeah. It's not wishful thinking, Hank. Don't get us confused.
Okay.
Okay.
We do need to get Civic Plus.
So that's where we are. So I can help everyone log in and use it. And, for my work, meeting invites, I think I'll still do through my Google system just because I can record it more easily and get a transcript to help with the minutes. But we'll start using this calendar. We'll start, integrating this in so that we're capturing all of the work we do and all the information. Okay, and then I'm going to stop presenting.
Okay, good. All right, thank you. We talked about membership a little bit. Once again, anybody that has it. On on the business, other business and discussions, what I thought I was going to recommend, obviously for June, we have Mark and Jim as our guests, as you know, for presentation. I'm wondering if we, in the future, should start to invite other folks to, like, from the Mass Housing Partnership, MHP, to come in and just talk to us about whether we have a specific topic or just to start to develop more of a contact with them.
What we had discussed was having MHP come in and facilitate a discussion about how we want to operate, right? Like, you know, it's great, you know, Hank is out there identifying potential projects and potential properties and things when we can start that exploration. But the question is, you know, what process do we want for that? How are we going to evaluate what projects we want to do and what projects we don't want to do? Mm-hmm. You know, what would that process be?
Right.
And so maybe inviting MHP to a future meeting or scheduling a separate workshop where we could think through and say, here's how we're going to create evaluation criteria to decide if a project is something we're going to pursue or not. And you know, we have priorities that were sort of set from the working group, and we have guidelines and principles we want to follow. But you know, short term, what are we looking to do? And we've talked about High Street Extension being a small project that would sort of take us through the whole process from land acquisition through delivery. But we're also talking with the housing authority. We're keeping an eye on properties that are in the potentially in the tax taking process. How do we want to pick and prioritize and do that work? The goal being that if we know that, then we can also start not only working on doing that project launch more formally, but then we'd have a process by which we could refer to and when we go ask town meeting to transfer more funds into the trust. So Ed, do you want to reach out to Shelley?
Yeah, I can talk, and I guess whether we have them, if for nothing else, I think just having a session to bring somebody up to date, everybody meet, might be good. And then we could decide whether we need a longer workshop, as you mentioned.
Okay.
I can ask Shelley if she would be available in July. Because June we already have people coming in, and just to and I can talk to her about maybe she might have some ideas of what would be appropriate for an initial meeting. And I'll mention, issues of we're starting to look at things, are there areas where she would recommend some processes, et cetera. Let me talk to her and see if she has some recommendations for an initial meeting with us, and but shoot for a July meeting. Okay.
And then I have another piece of new business. Very briefly, speaking of Massachusetts Housing Partnership, MHP, they just sent out notices. I don't know if everyone received it, of their 3 workshops in June. One of those workshops, one of the sessions on one of the afternoons is about outreach. And they've asked if myself and possibly others from our organization would be willing to participate as a presenter or a panelist in one of the sessions to talk about how we use Co-Urbanize for outreach and community engagement. So I said I'm willing to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I have it. It's the 3rd. Yeah, it's coming up on the 3rd at 1 p.m. And then there's 2 sessions on the 10th at 9 and 1, and then on the 17th. So these are all Thursdays. I'm sorry, not 9. No, they're all at 1. On the 10th, we have our meeting. So at 1 o'clock on the 3rd, the 10th, and the 17th, so 3 weeks in a row, are the Housing Institute, the MHP. They call it MHP Virtual Housing Institute. Did people get that information, Alan? I thought you sent it to everybody. For those.
I think so. I forwarded the email, but just so you know, I've been invited to be a panelist at the session that's at 3 o'clock on the 3rd.
Okay.
And they're going to get back to me if they want just me or they want other people from the team.
I'd be happy to do it as chair.
Okay.
You know,
I did. Sorry, Ed. I got your email about that, Alan, and then I contacted somebody. I'm just looking back at my email now, and nobody got back to me on how to register. So,
there should be a link on their website.
Okay, I'll go back to their website. But I think I just went back to. I followed the trail on your email, and so I emailed somebody there. I was like, I'm interested in how do I register, and I never got back. So I'll go back to their website.
Okay, we'll figure that out.
Yeah, Alan, why don't you, it would be great if you could say, yeah, you're willing to talk. And if they would like an additional person, I'm happy to be that additional person.
Okay, excellent. I'm waiting for more info.
Okay. Any other new business? Nope.
Oh, I just have a quick question.
Sure, Kate.
I haven't read, I'm sorry, I'm a very bad town resident. I have not read the entire warrant for town meeting yet. Do we expect, I'm planning on being there. But as you know, I have 2 small children and my husband and I have to swap. So sometimes I have to we go back and forth between who's at town meeting. So, so do we expect that there's something on town meeting that has to do with the housing trust and defending it in any way that I need to be there at a certain time? Okay.
There's nothing, if I can jump in, there's nothing specific to us. I think what the item that would have the biggest effect on us going forward would be the sewer, the wastewater treatment article to figure out what we can do to increase our capacity, because some of the developments that we're looking at, if they're multifamily and if they don't have flow allocation, that's going to be an issue. Okay. So that's the one. I don't think it's going to be an issue. No. That it's because the money's coming out of retained earnings of the sewer sewer retained earnings, and I guess wastewater. Well, it goes together: sewer and wastewater treatment retained earnings. So I don't think it's going to be an issue. That's the only one. Alan, I would hope you'd stay on. I do have a question about one item on the warrant. It's a minor question, it's just a number. And I guess that's about it. Unless somebody has any other business, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
I make a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Okay, you want to do the roll call, Alan?
Sure. Hank?
Roush, yes.
Kate?
Storm, yes.
Ed?
Bain, yes.
And Edinburgh, yes. We are adjourned by a vote of 4-0-0, 4 being present.
Okay, great. And thank you, Aiden and Westborough TV for recording this.
As always.
We can go off the air now.